The Vancouver Canucks are one of the top teams in the NHL, and these odds might shock you. And Patrik Allvin speaks out on the Elias Lindholm contract, and we have an update on the Hronek extension. I'll get into this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to say to thousands of you watching that aren't subscribed, if you're enjoying this Canucks content, make sure to go down, hit that subscribe button, never miss another episode, and stay up to date on the Canucks. But with that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Canucks among Cup favorites. Now, when you do look at this, there was a Bleacher Report article going around of just the Stanley Cup champion odds and what their betting odds were on this. And when you look at this, the Canucks are ranked 8th. And I'm saying this with a bit of shock. The Canucks are ranked 8th as their best betting odds. You see teams like the Florida Panthers, the Edmonton Oilers, the Hurricane, the Avalanche, the Bruins, the Rangers, the Stars. All these teams are ranked above the Vancouver Canucks, which kind of shocks me. Yes, they went through a tiny bit of slump. Yes, they blew 2 games in a row that they had the leads in. They did just come off a win where they looked really well, and they're also still missing people with injuries, and they've also dealt with a lot of injuries this season. So just seeing them ranked 8th was a little shocking to me. You also see on the S&P podcast, they were kind of speaking on how far they think the Canucks can make it into the playoffs, what's their expectations, and they say, you got to go farther than the first round now. Expectations have changed. They have to view success as getting out of the first round. Now, I think this is a bit ridiculous in my mind. You look at the Canucks this entire season, and they have been one of the top teams, and they were at the top of the league for quite some time as well. When you do just look at the standings, yes, the Boston Bruins are, and I want to say gross when I say the Boston Bruins, are among the top teams. They are ranked first with 97 points. The Florida Panthers are ranked second, 94 points. Rangers, 94. And then you see the Canucks in a 3-way tie with 94 points with the Panthers, Rangers, and themselves, the Canucks, as all teams with 94 points. Now, the big thing to look at this, the Canucks are 6-2-2 in their last 10. Yes, you have teams like the Jets just below them with a 7-3 in this span. You have the Bruins at the top with a 7-2-1. The Panthers 7-3-0. But this team shouldn't be written off as the 8th best odds. This is a team without their starting goaltender in Thatcher Demko, and they're still 6-2-2. They're missing guys like Dakota Joshua. This team is poised for a deep run. Seeing people say they're going to get knocked out first round, or if they make it out of the first round, they'll be successful. I don't think this is the case. I think the Canucks are all in this year, and I think that's why they went all in on a lot of their trades. When you do look at this with a goal differential, the Canucks are plus 55. This is better than the Boston Bruins, New York Rangers, Winnipeg Jets, Colorado Avalanche, Dallas Stars, Carolina, Toronto, Edmonton. These teams, other than the Florida Panthers and the Canucks, have a worse goal differential. This team is poised to make a deep run. They're having struggle. Elias Lindholm struggled until last game. Lindholm has struggled. You see guys like Quinn Hughes, Hronek, they've stepped up. Dakota Joshua's out. Garland looks great on that top line. There's so much to work with, and just seeing the odds, like I said, the 8th best odds to win the Stanley Cup. You see people saying on podcasts that they're lucky if they get out of the first round, and then you just look at the stats, the standings, all the injuries they dealt with. I think it's just a ridiculous point of saying, hey, they're going to make a deep run. They want to make a deep run. If they get knocked out in the first round, if they get knocked out in the second round, that is not a successful season, and that's not what the teams are looking at. So what's your guys' thoughts on this? Do you think the 8th odds to win the Stanley Cup is too high, too low, the perfect spot? And what's your thoughts on their season, and what's your expectations? Who do you think is going to step up, and what do you think needs to change for them to be the top team in the NHL once again? But with that, let's hop straight into the second topic today, which is Allvin speaks out on the Lindholm contract, and we have a Filip Hronek update on his extension. So when you do look at this, Allvin was speaking to LeBron, and he was just talking about the UFAs on the roster. Based on the conversations that I've had with these players, agents, and players, it's an environment that players like. So we'll have to figure out if it works for both sides. At this point, we're probably waiting. Yeah, unless they come in and they're begging to sign a really team-friendly deal. Now, obviously, this is towards a lot of players. Yes, Hronek is an RFA, but there's a lot of UFAs on this team, with the biggest notable one to talk about is Elias Lindholm. Now, Bleacher Report did come out with the top free agents to keep an eye on every NHL team. And of course, Elias Lindholm, a pending UFA, is the top of the Canucks list of what they need to figure out. And in this article, they say the Canucks have a few players headed to free agency, but the most interesting one is Lindholm, who they acquired from Calgary midway through the season. He's an outstanding player, but he has a bit more mute in Vancouver than he was with the Flames. Vancouver has a lot of blue liners in need of new contracts, but Elias Lindholm is one of the forwards who stands out. Whether they can extend them or not, it will be fascinating to see how it plays out. He's had 7 points in 19 games with the Canucks after a 32 in 49 games with the Flames. You can live with a slight dip in points as long as his defense is stellar, but any drop in point production heading into free agency will make everyone beware. And this is also a guy, like it says in this, that has earned himself an all-star nod this year. It was kind of funny seeing him get traded immediately after and wearing a Canucks jersey there, but overall, this guy was an all-star this year. Is his offense been great since he got to Vancouver? No, he has struggled a bit with this as well, but his defensive game has been outstanding. Now, there is a big thing with Allvin just speaking on. He said, initially we made the deal. I talked to his camp and he said our intention was to sign him. But it's got to work for both sides. Now, this is talking about Lindholm. If Lindholm goes the rest of the season without putting up any more points, yes, you're going to look at this and say, hey, maybe he's not our guy. Maybe this was actually a guy that was just an insurance for if Elias Pettersson did want to walk or leave or whatever it might be. But it seems like Lindholm and his camp has talked to the Vancouver camp and wants to work something out. They just need to figure out numbers. The biggest thing I want to look with Elias Lindholm, yes, there are a couple of guys here that are going to be UFAs at the end of the year. But right now, when you're looking at this down the middle, Elias Pettersson is the number 1 center, or number 2, depending on how you look at him, and JT Miller. JT Miller is slotted in on this as the second line center, and then you have Elias Lindholm as the third line center on this. The big thing I want to focalize and kind of look at this is the fact that if you're going to give Elias Lindholm the money he wants, maybe this is $7 million, maybe this is $5 million, $6 million, whatever it might be, he needs to step up as someone more than a third line center. We've seen over his career he can play first line center, second line center, penalty kill, power play. We've just seen him slide back to the power play in last game. But the biggest thing with this is you don't want to pay a guy $7 million to be a third line center. We see this happen around the league. Guys get just say 7x7s, end up not working out, and then you're either stuck trading off picks, prospects in the midst of when you should be contending for a guy just to get off your roster, or you just end up getting an overpaid guy that you're kind of stuck with. I mean, you see a guy like Stahl that was in Carolina, his contract did age. He looked great his entire time, and he still does. But the big thing with this is you don't want to be stuck with $7 million playing on your third line. So if Lindholm does step up and say takes this number 1 center spot, number 2 center spot, Pettersson slides to the wing, looks better than, yes, you make this offer, you make him a sign, you keep him on the Canucks, but if not, I think you just use him for this playoff run and reevaluate at the end. Now, what's your guys' thoughts on this? Do you want to re-sign Lindholm? Do you want to leave him as a free agent and just kind of let him walk? It'd be disgusting if he signed with the Bruins after being with Vancouver, but it seems like that's the team that's going to be heavily after him if he does hit free agency. But talking about free agents and stuff like this, you could kind of see on the S&P podcast, they were speaking about Hronek. And apparently the Canucks have made an offer, and in quotes, it got rejected rather quickly. Now, this is not a good sign, but it continues on that they did talk about it, and they said the offer being in question here was between 52 to 54 million range, and that's between 6.5 to 6.75 million per year. So it seems like Hronek and his camp wants a lot more than just say 7 million. This might be 7.2, 7.5. I did do a comparison a couple of videos ago. If you want to go check that out, you can as well. But it seems like he wants a 7 million plus range. Maybe this is a long-term deal. They don't want to sign him for a 1-year deal. They don't want to walk him straight into UFA and let him walk on the open market or just drive his price up. So what's your thoughts on this? How much do you think Hronek's worth? How much do you think Elias Lindholm's worth? And are you worried the Canucks aren't going to get out of the first round? Or do you think all this media of them saying they're lucky to get out of the first, they have the 8th best odds, you think that's all kind of baloney, and you do think that they're cup favorites? But with that'd be it for this episode of Canucks Digest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be here all season long, giving you updates from all around the Canucks. And if you don't want to subscribe, well, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you see you next episode. Other than that, take care.